Hello everyone, you're watching a special show on Budget 2024 on NDTV. I'm Radhika Ramaswamy coming straight to you from Somaiya Institute of Management. I have with me some bright young students who will take us through their expectations and suggestions on Budget 2024, which will perhaps change the economic landscape of the country. Thank you all for joining us. In fact, let me start with the most pressing issue today, which is jobs, unemployment, lack of jobs, of course. India is supposed to create 10 million jobs in a year. There are issues, of course, there are all kinds of SOPs being given out, all kinds of schemes being announced by the government. But what, according to you, could be some concrete steps that can be brought in order to create jobs in the country?
As rightly said, that unemployment is one of the biggest issues which Indian economy is facing right now. And I believe that this could be sorted out if, whenever I listen to about unemployment, there's one thing come in my mind, which is gig economy or gig workers. So many states like Karnataka and Rajasthan are taking steps for gig workers. But there's one issue with the gig workers, which is the definition of gig workers. So the definition is not clear. They are not called employees. So there is not a relationship between employee and an employer. They are called moderators. So that is the problem, and the definition should be clear enough for gig workers, and because of which, or after sorting this issue, I think unemployment issue will be sorted out.
Right, and taking that question forward, how can we sort of ensure, there is of course Make in India, there is Startup India, how can we ensure there are enough skill development programs perhaps to ensure people are employable? What's your take?
Hello everyone, my name is Ayush Verma, and on this take, skill development is a major issue, and basically from the tier 2 cities which lack in the skill development, and my expectation from the budget is the more skill development program and boosting an MSME sector in the tier 2 cities, so that we can fill up this employment gap also and skill gap also.
Okay, and let's talk about entrepreneurship, startups. Many of you would like to start out on your own, but it's not easy, of course. Government doing enough, or perhaps maybe not so much in order to boost entrepreneurship. Of course, multiple schemes being launched, but what do you think should be the next big step in order to boost entrepreneurship in the country?
All right, first of all, hello everyone, my name is Utkarsh, and what I've seen in the West is that they have a self-sustaining startup culture where these small businesses somewhere develop an ecosystem and sustain off each other, which is lacking in India. I mean, we have had Shark Tank, we have had Make in India campaign, we have had a lot of boost to the Indian startup culture. Now that the culture is there, I want the budget to invest in the infrastructure that sustains this setup for startups and everything for a longer period of time, because we are all MBA students, we all hope and expect to get our own businesses, be the founders of our own companies. But what we find is that it's very difficult in the current scenario. We still depend a lot on the angel investors and investment from the West, which is one of the biggest problems when it comes to Indian startups. So that's something I think the government can push a little more in this budget.
Right. So again, taking the same question here. So in terms of entrepreneurship, as you said, it is challenging in terms of documentation, bureaucratic processes. So what can be done so that there is some sort of relief for entrepreneurs in terms of not just funding, but in terms of making the compliance also easy?
With regards to the different schemes that the government has rolled out, I think there is also a lot of bureaucratic work where the paperwork gets stagnated and there is a lot of lobbying. So if there is an easier process to fast track the entire registration process, because in countries abroad to register your company it takes a matter of minutes, but over here it's an entire task for days. And that added to that, I also feel in a way if we can add entrepreneurship as a skill, as a part of our curriculum going forward in the NEP, this way it's a part of people's day-to-day lives.
All right, so now let's go to, of course we spoke about jobs, employment, startups, entrepreneurship. Let's go to education. Let me ask you about, of course, as I said before, there are SOPs schemes. Maharashtra government recently announced SOPs for students, fresh graduates, class 12 students. But is that enough in terms of boosting the education sector and also to ensure students are not burdened with loans? What steps do you think government should take to help students in the current education landscape?
It's a very general thing that even being an MBA student, it always, not everyone can afford to, pay that amount of fees and all. So obviously it burdens us as well. So I think that the government should definitely, put more investment towards the education sector maybe, that eases out various loans and actually helps various students that are not able to afford education as of now.
Let me also ask you about taxation. I mean, this is something that we all, as salaried employees look for during budget. So according to you, what is the kind of relief that, government should bring in for taxpayers like us? And secondly, which regime do you think works better?
Hi, thank you. My name is Nikita. So me being a part of the CA fraternity, I feel that the old tax regime is better because at some way or the other it gives us more deductions, and people have not yet shifted to the new tax regime because there are not a lot of deductions that are available. And there are no changes this time in the budget when compared to the last year for taxations. It's still the same, and I hope it remains the same, and there is no compulsion for the people to shift to new tax regime, because if there are new tax regimes, then the people, especially the salaried employees, will not get a lot of deductions which are easily applicable when they are in the old tax regime.
All right. Also, let me go to essential commodities, price rise, inflation. So if you'd like to, tell us about, some concrete steps that can be taken to bring down the prices of essential commodities, because everybody is talking about either the taxation part of it during budget or the fact that everything has become expensive. So how can the prices be brought down to a reasonable level as students? What do you think?
The thing is, what we see in the market currently is that the salaries are not going up and inflation is going through the roofs. So we are not able to afford the commodities which are changing their prices constantly. Me being a person who has a bike still is scared to pay 103 rupees for petrol in Mumbai. It's something that pinches you because you can see that it can be cheaper in other countries and the crude oil rates. The thing is, the subsidies that are there for essential commodities like electricity or water are going down. But I don't think that Indian economy is ready right now to take that step. What I suggest is subsidize certain necessities, which the government is already trying to do, but we are moving towards privatization way too soon. As we take an example of coal mines. Most of the coal mines are now semi-private and semi-public owned entities. We see that hasn't changed the flow of coal or the essential resources, but it has made a differentiation where a small scale trader or a medium scale businessman used to use those commodities. Because what we see is that most of the burden is taken by the middle class or the upper middle class or the tax paying category. Now what problem occurs is that once we come out of the education sector, once we come out of our colleges and we see that we have to start paying taxes from day one. But we already have our education loans to pay. We already have our own set of responsibilities. Our family has invested a lot on us. So it's very difficult to manage those expenses with the rising prices. I think somewhere or the other, the government can look to give leeways to people who have recently graduated or got the job for the first 2 years in the taxation section.
Right. So that's something that I'd like to take forward here as well. So he's talking about price rise, inflation, how students are also impacted as a result of it. So I did ask you the question some time back, but as management students, what are your expectations in terms of perhaps bringing the education loans down, like interest-free loans or reduced interest rates?
Yeah, so as rightly said, the interest rate for education loan is very high right now. And obviously it's not possible for everyone to spend 25 lakhs of hefty amount for their master's graduation. And most people don't do master graduation per se, right? So interest rate should come down for education sector predominantly.
All right, great. And let me go to technology. I mean, I'm sure many of you are from tech backgrounds as well. So technology is the forefront of economic transformation. So what do you think, what are the policies that should be brought in, to perhaps encourage cutting edge technology, especially in an AI-driven world?
In the technological background, although we have schemes like Startup India and PLI schemes, which are made to reduce our import burdens. But I think we have to penetrate these schemes to the tier 2 cities and everywhere. And cyber security is also a concern. We need an infrastructure for the cyber security. Thus my expectation from the budget is that more investment in these sectors would be beneficial.
All right. Also, would you like to add to that, this AI-driven world, how much it has creeped in and what should the government be looking into in India?
Even yesterday when we were talking to a few people, we were discussing, can AI take over our jobs? That's one of the biggest concerns. The current version of AI that is in the market cannot. But obviously, a lot of jobs have been reduced because of AI and technology. But what we miss currently is that the government is not investing that AI technology in renewable energy. Because we have seen that we are almost in the midst of an energy crisis where we are short of petroleum, the prices are going high. We are still talking about electricity, electric vehicles and all that. But the element of AI has not been introduced in renewable energy right now. So that is a sector where the government can invest because these are two of the major fields that are very sustainable right now, energy and technology. If you combine those two, your economy definitely becomes self-sustaining. So that's something I wanted to add.
All right. And can I also delve a little bit into manufacturing, investments in manufacturing? How will it perhaps help create jobs?
Okay, so talking about investment in manufacturing, manufacturing has always been a very vital part in an Indian economy, and in fact, it's really important to invest more in the manufacturing sector, as not only it provides more employment, but it also helps the economy to be in the balance and it helps sustaining the economy. So definitely more investment in manufacturing sector and more investment in energy sector is definitely needed currently, as of the current scenario.
Right, and also in terms of infrastructure, of course, we are building rails, roads, metros, bullet trains. But what do you think is a long-term plan that government can come up with? Of course, in terms of infrastructure, there is a lot happening, but there are delayed projects, cancelled projects, projects not up to the mark. So although we're talking about all these grand scale of things when it comes to infrastructure, what is on paper is not what is the reality of things. So in terms of infrastructure, how can that sector be sort of helped or supported?
In the coming years, logistics, that is a booming sector. How supply chain management is increasing because there is a lot of increased manufacturing. So an iPhone plant in Hyderabad or Noida, maybe that needs to connect with the ports that are down in the west coast, that's Mumbai. And then on, we are also investing in infrastructure projects across, like from Iran to Russia corridor. These are projects that we are doing on a grand scale, yes, and I believe this will help us as an economy. Yes, there needs to be a lot of checks and balances, as you rightly put, and I believe as we are going forward, we will improve because we are following what we can say as a China model. They also rapidly invested in their infrastructure and their manufacturing at the same time in the late 90s, and within a decade they saw a lot of returns, reaping returns for eons to come. So we have to follow somewhere close to that.
So we see that there's infrastructural growth, but we also see that that infrastructural growth is not reaching everywhere. I mean, cities and towns are getting connected, but the people who have to use that infrastructure are still the same, still the urban population. The rural population is still left ignored, not completely, but to a certain level. So what we need to do currently as a country is to focus on those sectors and those people who actually are the backbone of this economy, because agriculture is one of the biggest aspects that India puts in the global market. And if we are not actually focusing on farmers reforms, if we are not focusing on MSPs, if we are not focusing on making anti-competition laws, because currently everything, when you talk about these laws, these regulations, all this is on textbook. In reality, we all know how the bureaucracy works, how a common man has to strive. So all this infrastructure will be useless until and unless people are aware about how to use it and they are empowered.
So yeah, taking from that point, rural economy is something that the government is trying to focus on. They are stepping up government's focus on, rural industries. In terms of farmers' crisis, what do you think are the measures that, much has been spoken about, much has been done, but what long-term measures do you think can alleviate farmers' crisis and perhaps double their income?
So one major expectation from the budget would be to reduce the GST rates. Currently, I guess the farmers have a GST rate of 18%, which is too huge for the farmers. So maybe they could reduce that so that the farmers get more income, and I would prefer keep the money is easily available to farmer as and when they require for the harvesting. Yeah, so I guess reducing the GST rate would be a better way for their incomes.
Also, apart from that, I feel like Indian farmers are often, tends to disturbed about the monsoons and various other factors that generally happens. So investing in that part like rainwater harvesting or various other, sustainable alternatives would be quite beneficial, not just for the Indian farmers, but indirectly for the Indian economy as well.
All right. And let's also talk about climate change. That is also being spoken about a lot. This is obviously a big issue globally across the country as well. So how can the government and public deal with the situation in terms of long-term suggestions? What do you think should be brought in by the finance minister?
So we've seen that a lot of infrastructural change is happening, but these dams, these projects that we are making, these massive projects come at a cost of the environment. At least every dam or every hydroelectric power plant, you see that a lot of people are protesting against it. What we need to do, as you rightly said, that we need the system of checks and balance, where we focus more on saving our current environment and ecosystem. We in India see that the weather and the climate conditions have changed so drastically that even the farmers are not sure what crops to grow at what time, because there can be a hailstorm in the middle of March. We do not have any securities for them. So there should be a specific budget or a section of the budget that should be kept aside for situations like this, so that tomato prices do not go like 150 rupees per kg or onions do not go 120 rupees per kg just because there was a hailstorm. So we need more stability in that section.
Let's go to healthcare as well. Affordable healthcare seems to be a far cry in the country. Of course, there are multiple hospitals, super specialty clinics, but for lower middle class, for the poor, public healthcare is still a dream, a far cry. So what can be done so that every citizen gets quality healthcare in the country?
As you rightly put, healthcare and more or less affordable healthcare is a pressing issue, and I believe like the more awareness we have regarding affordable insurances that is available, a lot of Bima Yojanas have been started in the rural setups, and that has been giving a lot of people stability, especially families who are affected by the loss of a loved one or a medical emergency. Awareness about this is a major issue because a lot of people are not aware about it in the first place. And apart from that, India itself is a hub for manufacturing pharmaceuticals, and we need to leverage our position in this. How we can, for example, we use the fact that we have state-grown generic medicines available. How they have helped in reducing the prices of extremely expensive medicines. If that can trickle down to the laymen who are actually getting affected, generic medicines easily available, and even I would applaud the way we have taken Ayushman Bharat forward, but I think a lot more push has to be given to make sure that there is access to medicines and healthcare in every village, in every place possible, and that can only be done from government intervention.
So regarding Ayushman Bharat, it is for the rural people, and the rural people still don't have any knowledge about it. So one live example that I saw was at my house we have a maid, so her mother was not well. She was having a major tuberculosis attack and everything, and these guys did not know about Ayushman Bharat insurance policy, and these guys were running here and there for money. So maybe the government should take measures to make it more awareness about the Ayushman Bharat policy in rural area mainly.
All right, so awareness is something that's required. Although there are schemes, not everybody is aware of it. So just like one last word from all of you. Of course, we've covered various sectors from education, employment, across all sectors to manufacturing, investment, healthcare. So one last word from each one of you about perhaps that one aspiration or one expectation from this year's budget you're hoping for over the last few years, hoping for this time as well.
So the one thing that I would like to say is India is going to become a 5 trillion economy. But I have a dream that the India that reaches 5 trillion reaches with all its people, not just a chunk of it. And one thing as a student, I would personally like to say, be a little easy on us. I mean, especially on the professional side of things, because you see, the more professional your education gets, the higher the prices are. And it's very difficult to get returns currently seeing the Western market, the global crises like all around the world. It's very difficult to retain that money. So when it comes to the tax slabs, just give us a little leeway. That's what I want to ask the government.
A little leeway for students as well as for young graduates, fresh graduates as well. What about you?
Yes, definitely for us to be in the education system, it's a more burden for the financial burden for us to be repay our loans. So as a young graduate, we want our first salary not to be invested in the loans only.
So I would like to, my expectations would be that they reach the rural areas more, especially the villages and all the places, to create more awareness about the policies that the government has brought, for example, Ayushman Bharat or any other policy related to the farmers.
All right, better reach in rural areas. What would you like to say, your dream from this budget?
Okay, so like earlier we were talking about healthcare and all, and we did have various Mediclaim and various other options. So the major factor here is that I want the terms and conditions like which are mentioned there. Not everyone understands them very easily, and redeeming the amount becomes a bit difficult. So like raise awareness about that, make it a little easy. And apart from that, definitely being a student, I would like the interest rates on various education loans and other loans to be a bit easy, a bit lowered, so that it benefits us all. And yeah, like invest more in various sectors like tourism, hospitality, because these are some of the booming sectors, and these would definitely like create more employment in future.
All right. More investment in tourism, hospitality.
Yeah, so by summing up, I would like to say that, so according to me, the most pressing issue is climate change. And when I heard about climate change, it reminded me about Joshimat crisis or the collapse of tunnel. So why we are touching upon the areas which are sensitive, right? Development is okay, but if nobody is there to, leverage that development, there is no benefit of that development, right? The second one is that there is a automatic system in railway system which is Kavach, right? So what happens in that all of the things are automatic, and it reduces the risk of accidents. So but the stretch is not that much great. The timeline is getting stretched, right? So there should be small timelines for these type of important infrastructure schemes or activities. Yeah, so that's all I would like to say.
I would love to see how we can curb inflation. That's the most pressing issue that not just Indians across India, but the entire world, even businesses have been struggling with since COVID. And I believe for almost a decade, certain monetary and financial decisions like the note ban, the introduction of GST, then COVID, all of them have made the financial decisions of families a roller coaster ride. How we can introduce schemes or bring subsidies, lower the prices, so that we can head back to pre-2020 levels of inflation and probably ultimately return to normalcy would be something I'd be looking into.
All right, yeah. Ultimately returning to normalcy when it comes to inflation. All right, thank you so much, guys. It was very, very insightful. So much to learn from this. I hope, government does watch our show and perhaps take a thing or two and make that announcement. So yes, there you heard it from the smart, bright students of KJ Somaiya Institute of Management in Mumbai. Multiple needs, aspirations, hopes, expectations from this budget. Let's hope this budget will be aimed at inclusive growth across all the sectors that we discussed about. Thank you for watching.